innocuous one, helpful. And I think there are ways that we can be helpful. For example, the motto of the Scouts is do a good turn daily. And I was a Scout once, and I always wondered when somebody was going to test me on that, because I knew I was behind. Of course, I was behind in a lot of things, but what was interesting is recently I heard about a fellow named Jack McConnell. And when he was growing up, every night when he and his siblings would come home and have dinner, their father would ask each one at a time, "What did you do for someone else today?" In other words, how did you help? What good turn did you do? And so he had that habit of every day getting ready for that quiz where somebody would check up on him on indeed how he had done a good turn, how he had been helpful. He gained that habit. He became involved in the medical field, became a doctor. He was involved in, I guess it was the time test as I recall, also involved in the polio vaccine, involved in developing MRI, and so on. And then when he retired, he started an organization of medical volunteers where they would go to different areas and volunteer their time in clinics for the working uninsured, those that needed his help. And so he just had that habit through his life. And I was thinking to myself, isn't that, I seem like there's kind of a continuum. You have one end of the spectrum, which would be somebody like Jack McConnell, who is always trying to help people out. And you have the other end, which might be a hermit. Somebody that doesn't want to have anything to do with anybody else. He thinks of what his needs are and tries to satisfy his needs, but that's as far as he wants to go. He just holds up. And it'd be interesting to kind of think about our own lives. Where do we fit on this continuum? Are we more toward the person that really tries to help everybody out and whatever comes up? Or are we at the other end where we just got to go home, close the garage door, and that's the end of that? I was impressed one time by a neighbor of mine. I was out there shoveling the snow. I had no problem shoveling the snow. But he decided to be helpful and came over and started shoveling with me. Very surprising to me. And then one other time I think I did need some help. I was working on trying to put in a well, it wasn't a driveway, it was a place to play basketball court. And he knew that I would have problems. And so he came over to help me lay it out, and I said, "Gee, I'm sorry to take so much of your time." He said, "No problem, I planned on that." Obviously, he had a program of where he would try to be helpful in various occasions. And we look at a lot of people that have tried to be helpful, like Mother Teresa. To me, she was a person who always tried to be helpful in whatever way she could. Of course, she dedicated her whole life to that. But I don't know that we have to go that far. I was just wondering, can any of you think of anybody that might have been trying to be helpful in different ways? Just raise your hand if you do. Yeah.
Sure. My neighbor has guests come out every winter to ski, and we had a big snowstorm, and they came across the street and helped me shovel the driveway. So it was...
Yeah, we think of these examples of people that are helpful, and a lot of times we do it as an organization. I was thinking, for example, of sometimes I think of what I might need and how to prepare for things, and so I try to do it, like, for example, having a garden. But I have a neighbor of mine that not only has a garden, but shares whatever is grown in that garden, and if anybody at all is in the least bit interested in doing a garden, he'll help them figure out how to do it and how to have it productive. In other words, he's not only thinking of what he may need in the future, but what someone else can need. Any other examples that come to mind? Yes.
I'm always struck by sometimes and you see it from both sides. Someone will do what is to them a very small service on your behalf, but as it happens at a critical point in your life, makes a huge impact. I recall many years ago registering to go to community college after being a newly single mother and terrified to get back into that world. And a friend helped me do that, which was no big deal to her, but for me seemed like opening the whole world.
I think that it does fit in those next three things on the Scout Law is courteous, kind, obedient. No, see, friendly, courteous, kind. There we go. And that seems to me like it's helpful. I know that I've been in a situation where I've been under a lot of pressure, and somebody who cares enough just to say hello and how are you doing, and it does help. It really does. I think Dale Carnegie mentioned specifically that he'd like to go up to somebody who seemed to be having a bad day and try to figure out some way to make them happy, and maybe compliment them on something that they have. And he gave the example. Let's see, what can I say about that fellow? Well, he went up and he complimented him on having a good head of hair. The guy was proud of it and felt good after that. Anything else? You said you had something.
I'm grateful for my neighbor because I put my garbage out. I never have to put the garbage can back. I come home and it's done.
Yeah. Okay. And sometimes I think that we're kind of helpful as an organization. That's what a lot of times the reason we have organizations. For example, this organization is helpful to help people feel comfortable public speaking. And a lot of times we see that it's not only helpful for us, but it can be helpful for others. And I think Danielle is a good example of someone who is helpful and helping a lot of people realize the benefits that can come from this type of an organization. Any other things come to mind? Yes.
Just a simple one. In July, my family and I came down with a strep flare and pneumonia combo. And my neighbor, former neighbor, who now lives down the hill from me, knew that we were all sick and not feeling well. And she just made homemade chicken soup, which I thought was odd in July, but it hit the spot, and just the act of kindness was greatly appreciated. Lots of kindness.
And I think as we look at these things, we realize that really those that are happiest are on the end of the continuum that involves a lot of helpfulness. Jack McConnell, for example, indicated that he really was getting more from that clinic that he started volunteers, where he wasn't getting paid but was working 60 hours a week, than he felt the clinic gave to those that needed it. So hopefully we can develop this habit of helpfulness and indeed do at least a good